Good evening and welcome to the January 27th meeting of the Rules Committee. I'd ask the room to stand for the pledge, and I'd ask Legislator Goulman to lead us in the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Legislator Allner?
Here.
Legislator Goulman?
Present.
Chairman Birmingham?
Here. Thank you, and welcome to the January 27th meeting of the Rules Committee. Good to be here. What I'd like to do briefly is just give a brief chairman's report of some of the activities of the Rules Committee since it's met last. I'd like to do that going forward. Briefly, I know at our organizational meeting there was a lot of discussion about our legislative manual. A lot of good points were brought up not only by my colleagues who are here today, but also by some constituents. And since that time, as promised, I've gone ahead and met with certain department heads and other people interested, including Paul Eldridge, our personnel director. And also I'm planning on a meeting on February 14th at the county law department to meet with the deputy county attorneys. It's up to you guys to bring the chocolate, though, if that's okay. And to go over some of the changes that were not only suggested at the full board meeting on January 7th, but also to perhaps revise it along some other lines as well. As we have known for the last few months, we have these meetings being videotaped and live streamed. I think that we should consider also maybe putting that into the legislative manual as well. So I just want to give a little update on that. Also, as chairman of the Rules Committee, I'm planning with the administration's permission to meet with some of the boards that this committee appoints each year, the plumbing board, the electrical board, if for nothing else to get myself up to speed on the happenings of those boards. As legislators, we do have oversight responsibilities for those committees, or for those agencies. So again, through the administration, I'd like to start doing that as well. And of course, I'll keep the committee and the rest of my colleagues posted on that. And that's all I have for Chairman's report. We do have an item before us. This is a one-action item this meeting. It's approval litigation of settlement, Burris v. the County of Putnam. I would first ask any of my colleagues on the committee if they have any questions, and if we do, we'd prefer to go into executive session, but if not, we don't have to. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? I know we've all read it. How about any of my other colleagues who are not on the committee? Any questions for the law department? Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the settlement as prepared and presented to us by the law department.
I'll second it.
You'll move it up? Or I'd be happy to move it.
I'll move it, okay.
And I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We do have other business, either on the committee level or Bill?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm glad you mentioned, Chairman, that you have discussed the legislative manual with, multiple people. Can we believe that it will be on the next Rules Committee meeting, or we're going to be two meetings from now?
No, it'll be on the next Rules Committee meeting, which tentatively is scheduled for February, whatever the last 20th of February. It'll be an open meeting to discuss not only the changes that were brought up at the full board meeting, but also any other changes that the legislators or any member of the public might have. I can tell you it will be on that, and we either can or don't have to vote on it that night. Perhaps we might want to take one or two meetings to talk about it, but it will be on the February meeting, yes.
That's great, thank you. Also, at that meeting, I would like to have the personnel director and the law department to come in and give a little presentation on what they feel some of the issues are with it.
I think we'd all benefit from that.
Thank you.
I agree. Yep. Yes, please.
Bring it up, and we're bringing these, obviously, we recognize there's flaws in what we adopted, and you're admitting that, Chairman, and apologize to me saying, maybe put the cart before the horse. So with that, I would like it if someone on the committee could make a motion to rescind that manual and adopt the original manual as it exists until we can work on it in committee with the public. We adopted something without the public's input that affects the public. And, it still sits, obviously, something that needs to have a lot of work on it. We're talking to department heads, we're talking to the law department because we recognized the law department pointed out flaws with this. So if you're willing to do that, why not just, let's adopt something that we know doesn't have any issues right now, that we know we're not gonna get sued for, we know we're not violating any rights in the existing manual. So I would appreciate if somebody on the committee could make a motion to rescind the manual as was adopted on January 5th or whenever we met, and then make another motion to adopt the original manual that we had.
I'll ditto that motion.
Okay.
Call for a second.
Is there a second?
Second?
Oh, I'm sorry, you have to be a member of the committee to second it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Much like Legislator Russo, I came in a little green after my 12-year hiatus. I do admit that perhaps there were some things in the legislative manual that needed a bit more refinement, and I'm willing to entertain those and perhaps vote on many of them, as I said at the meeting on the 7th. I think, however, the way the manual is now is a good starting point for those discussions. So while I don't think there's a second to that on this committee, I am very happy, as we discussed, to talk about not only the changes you had suggested, but others, and hopefully to come to a place where I think we're all going to be comfortable with. Thankfully, one of the rules that has the most, I think, generated a lot of the comment was with respect to the nomination and confirmation process of the legislature. Thankfully, of the two nominees we have before us, I think we've all taken the view that they're grandfathered in, and so that they wouldn't fall under the rubrics of that. And so I think it's a good place to start. There are things there that I think are helpful, and God bless you.
Bless you.
So I think that's where we are, and I'm certainly looking forward to hearing everyone's discussion on this, not only of my colleagues, but also of anybody in the public or the general public at large. Any other business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Oh, thank you. A brief meeting. I didn't earn my salary tonight, that's for sure. Which one is next? Is Fiscal? Fiscal. Okay, thanks.
Good evening. Welcome to the Physical Services Committee. If everybody would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Holly,
Present.
Legislator Yasi,
Present.
Chairman Elman.
Here. First order of business is a resolution to authorize the filing of an application with the Federal Transit Authority. Commissioner Barossa, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for all your help with this.
Good evening. FTA recently sent us correspondence that our resolution and opinion of council are out of date and asked that we update them. The resolution that we have on file with them is from 2006. So I'm asking for the legislature to consider updating said resolution. They gave a sample, which I provided, and I think I also provided the original from 2006 for your information.
So basically, this has become a housekeeping issue because they just want a newer version of the same resolution.
Yes.
And just so people know that without this resolution, we would forfeit $150, $200 million worth of aid?
Probably around 100 million.
100 million,
I
okay,
mean,
so it's not a big deal.
It's all of our grant funding, all of our, everything that,
Yes. Any questions, comments from members of the committee? Fellow legislators? Okay. With all that being said, I move that we pass this along and we approve this. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
thank you.
Really, thank you. Okay. And is Matt Bruno here? No? Would anyone for the law department like to talk about this, or this is rather, I'll take care of it, okay. Once again, Mr. Bruno's done an excellent job. He's been able to recover money for damages to county property. And in this particular one, it's for $15,781. And the backup shows that balances out with the expenses, so there's no fiscal impact. Any discussion? Okay. I'd like to move this forward. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, do we have any other business? Yes, Bill?
Thank you, Chairman. On January 8th, I sent an email to discuss and review the inclusion requirements to the agricultural district. Since the application process starts on April 1st, time is of the essence that we do this. Today is January 27th. Since this is not on the agenda, can we expect it to be done relatively soon?
That depends on what advice we get from the law department. There currently is litigation against the county on this, and we're being very, very careful.
Okay, so we can't change the requirements until the law department comes up with something? Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Long meeting. Where were you sitting, Aaron? I was looking for the empty seat. It's over there.
This right? Yeah.
Just 1 second.
The video's down.
I didn't see her in there.
Good evening and welcome to the January 27th, 2025 Audit Administration Committee meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Birmingham, will you please lead us?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Legislator Birmingham.
Here.
Legislator Crowley.
Present.
Chairwoman Page.
Present. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3. We have correspondence from the county auditor. These are all FYIs. The first is 3A, which is the sales tax report. Please review it. Anyone have questions? On the committee first. Legislator Goldman.
It looks like these are only tentative numbers, not set in stone yet, but it looks like we projected too high for sales tax. We're down $3,188,423. Do we know when we'll get the exact numbers of when?
Commissioner Lewis, did you want to weigh in on that? Thank you.
Hello? So these,
Could I?
yeah, go ahead.
Quick question off of Bill's question. Commissioner, did we actually come in under sales
No.
tax? No, we're about $7 million over, Bill.
We're under 3 million.
No.
No.
Take a look at the,
Based on what you sent us.
take a look, Bill.
No,
No. That's from actual,
that's for the,
that's actual versus, in '23 versus '24. So it was 88.4 million.
So what's
And
the
and then in
million?
2020, excuse me, and then in 2024, it's 85 million. So you still have 2 more distributions in February that will be backdated to 2024. So that's why this number is a little, the misconception. I mean, I will tell you that if it does trend at the same level, we might be down 1% from last year, about 87.5 million. But that's assuming that everything stays the same. That's a combination of, the current economic environment with inflation, unemployment, the sales tax, allowance for the clothing. So all these comes into play. That 88.4 million is an actual audited number, because the first distributions that came in February of '24 gets backdated to 2023, and it's all based on the state's filing dates.
Okay, so
So-
I noticed the tentative, but February will have
So-
accurate numbers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Legislator Birmingham.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for clarifying that. This is our first agenda item on the agenda tonight. I'd not to tee up our last agenda item, but I'd like to just run over some of the last few years in actuals. I know the 2024 numbers are tentative at this point, but even assuming a terrible, we're about 7 million ahead of what we budgeted last year. And of course, that could change with the February catch-up.
Correct.
But it won't be, it might be a little less than 7 million, but we're well in the black. I'm looking here, in 2019, that year, it looks like we had the crystal ball out. We budgeted 65,705,789 for sales tax, and we got in, 66,003,871 in 2019, and we got in, actually, we received 66,003,884, a difference of $13.
That probably, if I had to take a guess, was that there was a surplus.
Okay.
And Commissioner Carlin at the time probably took the surplus money to fund other appropriations towards the end of the year.
Somebody had their crystal ball. That was some good planning there on, I wasn't here, so I can't take credit. And then in 2020, we actually budgeted 65,705,000, and we got actually in 66,761,000, a surplus of 1,055,000.
That was during the COVID year.
Yep.
But I also know, I don't remember what day it was, but the date was, but I know there was that court hearing with the Wayfair.
Yep.
So
That's-
that's what
That's where
drove
the
this
ka-ching
up.
happened, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And then in '21, we budgeted $61,765,000, and we actually received $78,052,000, a surplus of $16,287,000. And then in 2022, we budgeted an even $65 million. We got in $81,963,000, a surplus of $16,963,000. And then in '23, we budgeted $76 million in 060, and we actually received $88,450,000, a surplus of $12,389,000. And I know you know all these numbers like the back of your hand, but I just want to, like I said, tee up the last agenda item a little bit, just to give us a little color as to how, quite frankly, well this county legislature and the administrations have done in husbanding our sales tax monies, and how gifted we, blessed we really are with the sales tax revenues. So thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, that's an FYI. Moving on to agenda item 3B is the OTB report. As Legislator Castellano would say, it is what it is. Any questions or comments? All right, moving on again to agenda item 3C is the transfer revenue report. Please review it. And agenda item 3D, the 2025 contingency report. That's also an FYI. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4, which is correspondence from the Commissioner of Finance. Move on to agenda item number 4A, which is an approval for budgetary amendment for the Sheriff's Department deputies for outside services for reimbursement. This is bills that we receive after the closing of the year that we need to pay for the schools. This one is in the amount of $6,103.75. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the committee? Anyone else? If there's no further questions, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item 4B. This is for, just read the item. Approval for budgetary amendment 24A-129 for the Health Department to utilize the ATUPA funds towards education. ATUPA is the Adolescent Tobacco Prevention Act. By law, 50% of the fines that come in need to be used for promotional materials and education. And that's what this is being moved for. Does anyone have any further questions? All right, with that, I will make a motion to approve 4B. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
4C is an approval for a budgetary amendment 24A-130 for DPW for insurance recovery for guardrail damages. We just reviewed that in Fiscal. We're using our insurance recoveries to pay
Cover
for
overtime and the
DPW.
FICA that's along with this.
Any further questions on this item? If not, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 4C.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
4D is the approval for a budgetary amendment for Sheriff's Deputy Outside Services reimbursement. This is just exactly like the one that we just discussed. This is for the Brewster School District in the amount of $26,304.24. Are there any questions or comments on this item? All right, I will make a motion to approve agenda item number 4D. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item number 4E is an approval for budgetary amendment for Sheriff's Deputy Outside Services reimbursement. This is in the amount of $15,114.07. This is for the Carmel Board of Education meeting, Carmel Central School District.
Just covering the cost of the outside services that we provide for fourth quarter.
Any questions on this item? I will make a motion to approve agenda item number 4E. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, moving on to agenda item number 4F. This is an approval for budgetary amendment 24A 134 for the year-end journal entry. Number one, this is something that we do every year to clear up the books. Did you want to comment further?
Yeah,
on that,
no, it's
Commissioner?
just, it's my first comprehensive review of the, the year end. The auditors will come in at the end of March, so probably one or two more times I'll come before you, so we cover any overexpended items, recognize any excess, revenues or budgetary savings, and put that back into fund balance for these respective funds.
Okay, this is all, okay. Legislator
Yeah,
Birmingham?
just a quick question.
Yes.
And this is, Bill Carlin used to call my questions the pay Peter, the pay Paul questions on the year end. And I know we have to do this.
Yes.
A budget is a living document. It changes and things. But could you give at least me a refresher anyway?
Sure.
On the process of making, we're out of 2024 now, and we are making adjustments to that budget. How is it, how do we, what would happen is if we didn't, and I'm going to vote for this, don't get me wrong, what would happen if we didn't vote for something like this?
Then it's very possible that some of these line items in this financial statement would be overstated and overexpended. And,
Well, not that financial statement, because they haven't done it yet for.
well, no, but what we're doing is, I'm gearing up for the year-end audit, so that when they come and they do the audit, everything is covered. So there's no overexpended lines, because then that'll become a management comment, and it'll go in the footnotes of the financial statements.
Are there any tools, I'll be brief, are there any tools, Mike, that as a legislature we can, that we could employ to, for instance, if a department overspends its budget, generally speaking, we do come in and do the Peter and Paul list every year. And again, it's routine, there's nothing wrong about that, I'm not, but what would happen if there was something, an expense that we might not want to think was appropriate to be paid? You're right, there'd be a comment in that, but is there any way to head it off at the pass prior to it coming to this Peter and Paul phase of the budget year? Because I think that would be a good tool not only for us as legislators, because again, I don't. Yeah, well, yeah, and you're on top of things. I'm not, I'm not implying anything other than that. But is there anything that we could look at in the future where maybe, if department's getting within 90% of their expenditure in November or October, or even earlier, we could say, hey, dial back or come before us before we have nothing other than to either vote for it or get a comment in the financial.
I mean, I think that, for the most part, I think that, with the help of the county auditor, I mean, we pretty much monitor it, but I think I know where you're going with this. I mean, I know like we'll have overtime reports, and, we usually send that out to, to the departments that, you guys are trending, higher than expected. So, but we could work on that. Maybe I'll work with you.
And this is no comment on either of the offices. I've been doing this, for 20 years now. This is what happens. But just maybe for us, maybe something we could help you work on something like that. So.
And maybe something, I mean, like similar to the overtime report that we receive throughout the year. It'll let us know when we're getting close to 100% of overtime for all the different departments. Mm-hmm. And it kind of keeps us on the same page. We know what to expect at the end of the year. Are there any other questions?
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, with that, I will make a motion to approve agenda item number 4F. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 4G. This is an approval for budgetary amendment 24A 135 for the county attorney for outstanding legal services for the remainder of 2024. This is in the amount of $150,000. Did you want to comment on this?
Well, in regards to the, the budget piece of it, they had a budget of $300,000. They came before the committee, I believe, twice for an additional $200,000. They've pretty much have exhausted all that budget. A good amount of it is litigation with using Harris Beach for the Peekskill Hollow project. The other law firm that was used was for all the contracts that have been settled, and then, of course, there's some other miscellaneous items in there. But this $150,000 is a request for additional fourth quarter bills that were serviced and rendered. And behind here is the bills that were provided by the law department.
I mean, for me, I was a little taken back by getting this $150,000 in October. Was it October? The law department came in and said they had a $150,000 expenditure that they had asked us to pass, saying that would cover the legal department, the outside services for the remainder of the year. We took that with some hesitation, but we went ahead and passed it. Come to find out, they come back again in December and ask for another $50,000, which of course we were a little bit more skeptical. We did end up passing it because, we want to make sure that we pay our outside counsel. But I think, for me as a legislator, as a safeguard for taxpayer money, I think this is excessive. And I think the taxpayer deserves to see details on this. I appreciate the law department sending the invoices. As you stated, the original budget for outside legal services was $300,000. We received another $150,000, and then another $50,000 for outside services, and now we're coming back for another $150,000, bringing the total for the year to $650,000, which is unprecedented over the past 10 years. It's a full 116% over the original budget amount, just so the public is clear. This is over and above the budget for the law department in general. The law department's budget for our 7 attorneys is $2.1 million. I see the details for the backup, how much of it is illegible, and I can't read many of the invoices. So I would like to request that the law department send us clear copies so we can actually see what these invoices are for, first of all. And then I'd like to see what the invoices were for the remaining $500,000 that we approved throughout the year. We get these financial requests and we just sign off and say, go ahead, but we don't know what it's really for. I would like to have a detailed account of the invoices for this $500,000. Breakdown for the invoices and the cases that are being worked on for these amounts. The law department went over double the budgeted amount for the outside counsel, and we owe it to the taxpayer to let them know why, especially when we have 7 lawyers working in the county law department to do the business of Putnam County, and we're farming out this much outside counsel. And I will leave my comments at that. Is there anyone else in the committee who has? Legislator Crowley.
So 250,000 of that went to Harris Beach for the Putnam Valley Road, right? And then 100,000 went into Romer and Wallens for contracts this year. We settled quite a few contracts, so I think we have to consider that as an uptick when it comes to spending because we're not settling contracts every single year. So I think that's trending upward. So we do have to pay attention to that. And Putnam Valley has been a huge project. That's been going on for a long time, and it's cost us a lot of money. And I think our law department has done a good job. It's spent over, and some of them need to be clearer. But I mean, I don't think anybody anticipated spending $250,000 on a lawsuit in Putnam Valley.
Anyone else? Legislator Goldman.
What I agree with, let's say, Aaron Crowley. You mentioned, Commissioner, it was $250,000 for Harris Beach?
Correct.
Okay. If you guys remember, there was a contractor under the previous administration that walked off the job that dealt with the Peekskill Hollow Road project, the largest road in Putnam County, actually. There were bridges with plates on them. It's a very dangerous situation. We're lucky that no one had a car accident and we got sued for millions of dollars. It was a very dangerous situation. So the county had to sue the contractor for leaving the job. And $250,000, actually, we should consider that to be a bill that we shouldn't have to pay, but we had to pay because it was over and something that we really couldn't really control. So, that's a lot of money of that $650,000 that we paid last year. We're talking, $400,000 on top of that. And due to the fact that the budget was $300,000, and then the $100,000 that went for contracts, that's the money that you're talking about right now.
So don't we know in advance that we're going to be settling contracts and that should be budgeted within the original budget? Don't we know already that we have ARBIN on our books and that we need to budget? I'm asking for documentation and budgeting and accountability to the taxpayer. So if there's anyone else that hasn't spoken, Legislator Yonke.
Yeah, thank you. The ARBIN litigation didn't begin in 2024, it began in 2023. If they thought it was gonna be a prolonged litigation, that should have been budgeted for. Same thing with as Chairwoman Sage pointed out, same thing with the contract negotiations. We have people from the law department. I'd like to ask some questions through the chair if they don't mind answering. I see the Harris Beach Murtha, and I saw another firm. Murtagh, Casu, Venditti, and Castro Blanco LLP. What was that, what was their service? What was that related to?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, just for the record, I'm not going to be swearing anybody in during this committee meeting since we do have that on our
rules.
so proceed. I apologize.
That, if I may just say, no, you can. I think that any matters that we're discussing on this agenda item should properly be taken in executive session. My anticipation is you're going to be asking questions, as you did with your first one, related to pending litigation, and it would be inappropriate to address it in a public forum when we're discussing confidential litigation matters. So I respectfully request that we adjourn to executive session. We can address all questions that may be posed, and we can make some points of our own that you feel you need to.
I'm going to change my question, because I believe that the second part of my question relates to a matter that's no longer active.
Respectfully, it is still a litigation matter. We have to be very careful that we don't vitiate attorney-client privilege. The legislature is our client. And again, we can have this discussion in executive session. It would be inappropriate to have it here.
You know what, I'll send a confidential memo down, and you can answer me confidentially between now and whenever we consider this.
If that's your choice. But we're here to address it tonight. Thank you.
Any other comments? Legislator Morgado.
I'm not gonna ask to go into executive session, and I'll just make my comment from what my understanding of some of these invoices are and mean. And one I know is directly related to something in my district, which we've been waiting for since before I got on the legislature, and that is legal services for the radio system and the cell tower, actually antenna. Don't want to call it a cell tower, it's an antenna, and it's, it was a very complicated process in dealing with easements and the town and Open Space Institute, and that's been ongoing. I think another one of these invoices, I think the total amount was maybe 40,000, possibly could have to do with litigation regarding the agricultural districts, and that's something the legislature imposed on ourselves, and I'm surprised that we're actually not being
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, are we-
confidential matters.
so.
I'm wondering if we,
We're being sued. I believe that's been in the paper, so it's.
I'll-
I'm
You said you
making a
wanted
point
to talk
of.
about that in.
So I'm making a point of
All right,
what
I'll make
these,
some points
what
too.
these, so I have the floor.
so,
Do you want to
I just, may I speak with counsel before we proceed?
No, because I have the floor and I'm not finished.
I'm the chair, and I'd just like to ask counsel's opinion on if we discuss specific,
Issues imposed by this legislature, one
Point of
also regarding.
Point of order,
legislative
please.
Manual.
Legislator Montgomery, I will let you continue, but I would like to just get opinion from the
So
council.
if you don't want to follow Robert's rules, I do have the floor.
Point of order, I would like to
don't have
ask,
the floor.
you don't have the floor if the chair doesn't give you the floor, so at this moment, I'll let you proceed, Legislator Montgomery, but what I would like to do is ask council if it's okay,
Following Robert's rules.
please just be kind to people, be respectful.
Legislator that has the floor.
May I ask the
If you want to
council
shut me
if it's
out
okay
again,
that we
let me
bring
go
up
back
these
to the
specific
amendment now, or you'll
cases?
shut me out of conversations too? All your talk about fairness and civility.
Legislator Montgomery, please.
So that's
This
off
is
the
not
table,
becoming.
because you
I'm
can't
asking
do that.
legislative counsel a question. May we
No, I
proceed?
have the floor. I am telling you my
Don't have
interpretation.
the
You
floor.
don't have the floor.
So, no, because you took it from me, because you don't believe in democracy, you don't believe in
Can
Robert's
you
rules,
please-
you don't believe in fairness, and you don't believe in civility by allowing me to speak. Let me finish.
Let's talk about civility, shall we?
Yeah, we shall.
Legislative counsel, may I ask you a question, please? I just want to make sure that we're not touching on any attorney-client privileges as Legislator Montgomery rants off of her
Imposed on the
cases.
law department.
So,
That's why we have to pay, because you impose these things on the taxpayer.
Yes, Chairwoman, it's a matter of content as long as we're not talking about specifics and it's not actually confidential specifics. That would be for executive session, but as long as it's strictly listing what the name of the litigation is, again, that's public record at this point. But again, it all is about the content of what's being discussed.
I still
Okay,
have
thank
the
you.
floor. So these
Legislator
are
Montgomery, I was giving you the
still
floor. I
have the
wanted
floor.
to,
We're done with him. So half of these things in here are issues that were imposed by the legislature on the taxpayer. $150,000 transfer.
Legislator Elner,
Attorney,
uncalled for,
wow,
uncalled for.
and I want to be very careful just saying this. The ag issue
Yes.
is being handled in-house, so we have not expended any funds to outside counsel. I just like.
That is
if I may.
correct. I'm handling the matter.
Correct.
I have it almost completely drafted. I'll be supplying a draft over for review and to answer any questions at the time.
Right, I just want to clarify that no outside counsel expenditures regarding the ag board have been spent.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken yet? Okay,
I just,
Legislator.
thank you through the chair.
Carly.
I also wanted to just bring to the forefront that NYMER does require us to seek outside counsel for a lot of these issues. So the outside counsel that we've had to retain for a lot of these things have been because that's what they require of us as our insurance company. So when there's a lawsuit, we have to follow their rules.
Legislator Yonke, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, we have a bill that, that was for the litigation that the county executive launched against the legislature, which was then aborted in the amount of $52,000. That's what it appears to me, $52,000. For the work that was done to assassinate our legislative counsel, Rob Ferriolo, it looks like the bills add up to about $35,000. That's where the money's being spent. It's not being spent on the ag board, the ag district. That's where the money is being wasted. Okay, and by the way, I just want to point out, our county attorney hasn't been seen here in almost a year. Why is the work not being done in-house? Why is not more of this work being done in-house? It's the taxpayers paying.
Anyone else? Legislator
I
Montgomery.
believe the taxpayers are paying for the in-house work that's being done, especially with the ag district. And I believe that, you know, a lot of those things that we need in the county are on hold, legal issues that need to be addressed for services in the county that our outside agencies might need the county to look at, maybe are on hold because of lawsuits imposed by this legislature. So, and I appreciate that the former legislative counsel is not here, because apparently in caucus, which the taxpayer pays for him to be in caucus, that's another whole thing, but he clearly has indicated to the Republican legislators not to give anything to Montgomery, because once you give her something or vote with her, that really takes away
I think we
your
need to stay
power.
on-
So I
on
really
task here.
appreciate that he's not here.
Legislator
Don't give
Birmingham.
anything to Montgomery, because
Legislator Birmingham.
Yeah, as Mike said, we got to pay our bills, and to the extent any more information might be needed, we should get it. But Mike, what's our deadline to make sure we don't get a note in that financial statement? Because you know, my vote is, you know, we got to pay our bills, and I'm not going to not pay our bills. These other issues are important on both sides, and they should be discussed, whether it's an executive session or here in the open to the extent we can. But we do have to pay our bills. And again, I don't want to stifle any of my colleagues if they want to get more information, but I also don't want to blow through any deadlines that we might have to get a little ding on our report, and I don't want that either. So, and I'm putting you on the spot a little
That's
bit.
fine. Again, the audit is at the end of March, and when it's all said and done, they'll probably be presenting by June. So there is other opportunities other than this to cover those expenditures.
Okay, thank you. And just whether we vote on this tonight or not, we have to pay our bills, and that we should make that clear for the record. Thank you.
Legislator Elner.
And one bill which I really think we should pay is, I think the law department needs a better photocopier. Some of these things, they cannot be read. That's all.
Legislator Crowley.
I'd like to echo Legislator Birmingham. We do need to pay our bills. We don't need to end up with a judgment and have interest accruing and things like that. That's going to cost the taxpayers more money. So I'm just agreeing with Legislator Birmingham. Thank you.
Okay, it sounds like we have a little bit of time. I have a lot of questions, and I would like to just make a motion to table it for the next Rules Committee. I also believe we need to pay our bills, but I would like to table for more answers to some of these questions for the Rules Committee. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, but with a question to the law department, and not a confidential one. If we put it off for a few weeks, the Rules Committee meeting is going to be meeting in February again. If we consider this at that point, is that going to unduly burden any of our contractors, or I'm trying to find a compromise here. I want to do the right thing.
No, and I appreciate that understanding, and I think 2 weeks would allow us to provide more information upon
Okay.
request and clarify some of the issues to your satisfaction. I don't think that would, given when the bills came out, I don't think that would unduly burden the
Okay.
professionals.
Just so you know, and I probably misspoke, I said a couple of weeks. Right now, the committee was deciding, myself, Bill, and Greg are on the Rules Committee. We were looking to meet essentially the last Monday of February again, so I didn't want you to, I said a couple of weeks, which you should have taken literally, but February 20th, so that would be the
Just
date.
before audit, so same night as audit, so we could just sweep it all out that same
We're
night.
not going to meet then, or? Oh, no, I thought you said it was the last, when is audit?
It's that Thursday.
February
because
sixth.
NYSAC
Okay, so then
So is it?
it'll be after the 20th, after the 20th. Why is that so late, if I could ask, or so early?
Because of NYSAC.
NYSAC.
And again, I don't think that's unduly burdensome to the professionals who provided the
Okay.
bills. They know Putnam County has a reputation for always paying their
Yes,
bills
we
in a
do.
timely manner, and I know they're appreciative of that. And we could provide an explanation to them if necessary.
Okay. We do want it to get before rules, and I will do my, in deference to my committee members too, I want to make sure they're there as well as many others. So I'll keep you posted on when we have it, but I didn't want to not let you know that we're going to consider it. Okay,
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second
discussion.
discussion.
I'm sorry, I had another question, but it's not to do with the table. Sorry.
I mean, if there's, can we have discussion when something is tabled?
Once everybody's spoken and there's a motion to table, there's no further discussion.
I don't think Legislator Russo's spoken, or Legislator, no? Okay. All right, that's it.
Can I just
Yes.
clarify one thing? If this gets deferred into the rules in February, then it'll have to go to the March full.
Yep.
So they wouldn't have access to that money until early
That's a good
March,
point. Yeah.
which would be anywhere from 60 days out from these original billings, if not more.
That'll help me decide, so I'll ask again to the law department, is that going to be unduly burdensome?
I'm not really in a position.
Okay, I'm putting you on the spot,
To be able
yeah.
to say, I mean, you're working with us, and we do appreciate it, and I think we could explain to the professionals that have provided the services what the situation is. If they have to be a little more patient, then that's what's required under the circumstances, and that's the best we can do.
I understand, thank you for that
I
clarification.
appreciate that, thank you. Legislator
I'm sorry,
Yonke.
but before we move on through the chair, I just want to be clear with John. Because next month, we're going to come back to the meeting. Are you saying that I can't talk about a specific bill, that there's confidential material in the bills that I can't ask questions about?
I don't think that's what I said.
Okay, I want to be clear, because I want to be able to talk about the bills. Legislator Montgomery started talking about the ag district, and nobody objected here. I want to make sure I can answer my questions.
Well, is there some reason that it would be inappropriate to address those questions in executive session?
Yeah, because we've got the public that want to hear what's going on. I think we talk about transparency, we throw that word around. I want to be transparent.
Would it be inappropriate to address any of those questions with the law department in advance of the meeting, so at least...
Not at all, no, I'm happy to do that.
That's the purpose
Especially if we table, at the time I
Purpose of
asked,
table.
we weren't talking about tabling. But is it inappropriate to talk about a bill without talking about the exact, the details of the case?
Well, I think that in asking that question, that may reflect some details of the case, and I think we have to be vigilant to make sure that we don't go into those areas. So I hesitate to answer your question in a general sense, and then put ourselves in a position where a general question becomes specific, and then we start talking about it on the record in an open forum. I don't think that would be...
Well, I think that would be the
good
time to say, I can't answer that here. If you wanted an answer, we'll go to executive session. But I thought, just generally speaking, we should be able to ask questions about bills. And these are some pretty heavy numbers.
I think just if I may, the major distinctions is whether there's something legally that we have to advise you on with respect to the bill, perhaps a consequence or collateral, issue with respect to that, or if your question asks about something of the substance of the pending litigation or the substance of some sort of confidential communication, or if it is a matter that is not within our confidentiality but someone else's. As you mentioned, one of the matters involved, a different department head's litigation that we didn't handle, we were recused out of, and so we wouldn't be able to vitiate their confidentiality with respect to things with that. So it really just depends on the content of the question that you've had, but as you mentioned, if you were gonna prepare a confidential memo, we'd be happy to answer any of your questions, and we could have further discussion on those matters as appropriate publicly, if it didn't implicate any of those unique circumstances.
I just really wanted to know, the Murtaugh firm billed $52,000. Was that for the aborted lawsuit by the county executive against the legislature?
I can't comment on what specifically they did with the county executive. The county executive would have to answer with respect to that.
But
they
you're
were,
submitting for payment.
We had to, as a matter of legal obligation, once the county executive raised a conflict, we had to provide him with counsel because our loyalty is to the legislature. And in that
Did you pay our bill?
yes, we had to pay for your bill with respect to Wallens as well.
No, Mr. Hollis.
Mr. Hollis was not appointed as your counsel, to my knowledge.
He was appointed by us. He was appointed by us. And you didn't pay that bill.
First of all, did we receive a bill from Mr. Hollis? I don't believe we
We
did.
sent it down. And
It's not among any of the bills.
Yeah, that's not part of this package.
And with respect to Mr. Wallens, Mr. Wallens was appointed to the legislator's conflict counsel because when the county executive raised the fact that there was a conflict, in our county attorney's estimation, he recognized this was subject matter that involved our office, involved his role, and so he recused himself and appointed conflict counsel. This was long before Mr. Hollis had anything to do with anything. He was appointed in the summer.
You understand why we appointed Mr. Hollis rather than going with Mr. Wallens, who was appointed by the county attorney?
Candidly, I
There's a
don't.
conflict there, and
Candidly, I don't.
Okay.
Because we appointed conflict counsel because we were recusing ourselves. It was outside counsel who's been used by the county for years in many different capacities. Competent, capable counsel with vast municipal experience. So candidly, I don't know why there was any problem.
who does tens of thousands of dollars of work for the county, under the county attorney's umbrella. He's appointed by the county attorney, and then I don't.
It doesn't, we don't have any vested interest in any of it.
I don't think it's clean, is what I'm saying.
I think we can have this argument another day. Let's finish this item that we have before us. I think this is not going to get us anywhere.
May I just finish my response to answer?
Go ahead.
Legislator Yonke, first of all, the reason that we have a bank of attorneys that the county attorney draws from is because they submit RFPs through our rolling RFP process. Part of that is them agreeing to government rates so that we know that we have a cap on how much we're spending. Also, they go through conflict vetting to make sure that there isn't any other pending matter for which their representation would present a conflict. And it also gives us an opportunity to go through their background qualifications to make sure that they're appropriate for a matter. To my knowledge, and again, I don't know everything, but to my knowledge, I don't believe that any such RFP, rolling RFP submission was presented by Mr. Hollis. And that's important so that we're ensuring government rate, as opposed to, suddenly someone is retained and we have no idea what the rates are, and then we get a bill that's $700 an hour. As opposed to government rate, which, it can be raised. He could have presented, to the legislature and given a basis for why, based on his qualifications, he needed a slightly higher rate, and we've approved that in the past. But there's that rolling RFP process through the law department for that reason.
I understand.
Okay, so let's put this to bed right now. We're going to discuss it further at the Rules Committee. We've got a motion to table to rules, a second to table to rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5. Is approval for a fund transfer for the Department of Social Services to cover year-end costs.
This is just customary, year-end accounting from the fiscal manager in DSS.
This is in the amount of $16,331. This is,
$13,700.
oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the reverse side. Yes, you're right, $13,705. Any questions or comments on this particular item? I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item number 6 is for the Department of Social Services. It is an approval for a fund transfer for the Department of Social Services to cover year-end costs. This is in the amount of $7,460. Any questions or comments? Being there is none, I will make a motion to approve agenda item number 6. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to agenda item number 7. This is an approval for a fund transfer for the Department of Social Services to cover the balance of December rent supplement program. This is in the amount of $4,295, and there is no fiscal impact. Any questions or comments on this agenda item? Okay, being none, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item number 8. This is an approval for a fund transfer for the Probation Department to cover a temporary position. This will cover the temp position until a new hire is trained. We have with us our probation director, John Osterhout. Did you want to make a,
I just wanted to
Describe-
make sure I was here in case you had, I wouldn't want you to do this without me.
great, so I'll let you embellish.
So this is a position that we've had a lot of difficulty filling over the last couple of years. And I appreciate the fact that in the last budget, the legislature agreed to raise the position up to a grade 10, which is making it a little bit easier, I hope. This person who retired did so at the end of October. Didn't know that that was going to happen when I was presenting my budget. And so I ended up not having this position covered, but I need her because she runs my ignition interlock program for conditional discharge cases. So at any given time, she's got 100 conditional discharge cases that she's monitoring. It's pretty technical stuff. It also requires her to submit quarterly reports to the state for reimbursement, for grant funds that we get from them. And I really want her to be here, not only to cover in the interim, she's agreed to do that 3 days a week, but also to train her replacement so that he can do or she can do those quarterly reports and all that goes into monitoring ignition interlock cases. Now, I've asked for $15,000. That would get me through June. And I was thinking worst case scenario, but now I'm hoping for best case scenario because I actually have offered the position to somebody and I'm hoping that he'll start in the middle of February. If that comes through, I will only need about $9,000 of this money, just to be perfectly honest.
Okay. Legislator Berman.
Yeah, so John, thanks for that explanation. It educated me a lot. So you need this, one of the most important projects or purposes of this employee is to administer the very important role of making sure people who are under your supervision aren't driving when they shouldn't be through that interlock program. Again, I'm a little rusty. I'm coming back after 12 years. Can you just give us a short description of that program and how important it is? Because I think it is.
Ignition interlock is something that the state imposed on anybody who's convicted of a DWI in New York State. You have to have an ignition interlock device on your car in order to start the vehicle. And that is for both probationers and for people who aren't sentenced to probation. The judge is obligated to sentence them to a conditional discharge or probation and require ignition interlock. Somebody has to monitor the fact that the ignition interlock goes in the car and any violations of the ignition interlock device while they're under our supervision, either by conditional discharge or through probation. So if they blow a positive test or if they fail to blow into the device when they need to, because it requests rolling retests, all of those things have to be reported to the judge, and this person's position is to monitor all of that and report back to the judge when somebody violates the condition of ignition interlock.
So without this money, that program could be in jeopardy.
I don't know what I would do without this.
Yeah, good. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think it's pretty clear. And it says here that you anticipate an additional 2 months to get trained from the hire date.
Yes, because that will get us through the first quarterly report, and that's a pretty cumbersome process.
Okay, so depending on the hire date, there'll be an additional 2 months after that to be for training. That certainly makes sense. This is
Thank you.
a important program, I think. If there's no further questions, I will make a motion to approve agenda item number 8. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to agenda item number 9. This is an approval for a fund transfer for the Department of Mental Health and Social Services. Training hours for the fiscal manager. This This is for the fiscal manager to be trained to,
By the former,
the former fiscal manager is training the current fiscal manager for the Mental Health Social Services Department. This is in the amount of $6,635, and this is to cover 100 training hours for 2025.
as we approach the 24 year-end audit,
Okay.
so.
Is there any questions from the committee? Any other legislators or the public? Okay. I will make a motion to approve agenda item number 9, the amount of $6,635. No fiscal impact. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And agenda item number 10 is approval for a fund transfer for the Sheriff's Department, reclassification of Deputy Lieutenant to Deputy Sheriff's First Sergeant. Did you want to embellish on this particular
Yeah,
item?
no, this was, at this point, it was just an administrative oversight. When the sheriff went back in, well, the resolution was 207, which I think was passed on October 1st. We were in the midst of our budget proceedings. So all we're doing is just correcting the personnel, because they had asked for a reclassification of the deputy lieutenant to a deputy first sergeant. So therefore, we actually saved $7,000 by doing this.
Okay. Any, Legislator Crowley?
In the budget, and when I brought this to your attention, didn't we save $142,000 because there were already 2 positions classified for 2 first sergeants plus a lieutenant? That's what I brought to your attention the other day.
Well, it was the base salary.
Right,
That-
so we still had a lieutenant in there and 2 first sergeants.
I'll have to take another look at that.
Yeah. Because that's what I saw, that we still had budgeted for 3 positions, and we had gotten rid of 1 altogether, and then given a new union position for 2 first sergeants.
Okay, take another look at it.
Perfect, thank you.
All right.
Okay, meanwhile, are there any other further questions on agenda item number 10? This is a tax savings of $7,037. I will make a motion to approve agenda item number 10. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 11. This is an approval for the authorization for legislators to attend the February New York State Association of Counties Conference. It appears that 6 legislators will be attending the conference in Albany this year. And I don't see a dollar amount here. This is just approval for 6 legislators to attend the conference.
Yep. I don't want to go,
Committee.
It says a dollar amount on that.
that's just per person.
Yeah,
Right.
$986 per person. Legislator.
6.
Yeah, 986. This will be covered under our 4646 line, education and training, wouldn't it? 4640, okay, yeah. I would like to say, I'm just, for the record, I'm going to be one of the ones that would like to attend this meeting. I think NYSAC, that's really the county's advocates up in Albany for the state legislature. You know, they advocate on behalf of county taxpayers throughout the state, and I have attended this in the past as a legislator, and I just find it to be, their conferences and their sessions are very meaty in the sense that they talk about present issues, things that are on the front burner, not only in Albany, but also nationally, and I think it's time well spent. It helps us with our education and learning what challenges the state might impose upon us in the upcoming year through legislation. And I want to assure everybody that if any of us were to attend a junket in the middle of February, it would not be to Albany.
No.
So I did want to say that I am going to be one of the ones attending, and I hope to learn a lot there. So thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Any questions or comments? Okay, I will reiterate that. I've been to these several times. I try to go to at least one a year. It's time well worth spent. I will make a motion to approve agenda item number 11. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, continuing on, agenda item number 12. This is up for discussion. This is regarding the Putnam County's request to extend the 1% increase in county sales tax for an additional 3 years. This is something that we typically, we have approved over the years. We're putting on for discussion tonight to maybe visit some things that our new legislator on the board here at Legislator Birmingham would like to discuss. So I will give you the floor and allow you to.
First of all, I want to thank the county executive for bringing this to our attention so early in the year. His request to keep the 1% additional sales tax is, it's important that we request it now because there's this legislation, if it's passed, is going to need not only our approval, but the state legislature's approval as well. Just for background, our sales tax is made up of 8 3/8%, and 4% of that goes to the state. 3% of that comes to the county of Putnam as of right. In other words, counties are allowed to go ahead and charge a 3% sales tax rate on goods and services, certain services in the county, and then 3/8% goes to the MTA. The delta there, that additional 1%, is what we're being asked for here and, what we've asked for in the past. A little bit of history, we first asked for an additional percentage, not a full percentage, but in 2005, when I was on the legislature. We were at 3 at that point, if my recollection is correct, 20 years ago. And we, because of budgetary problems at the time, we went ahead and put a home rule request up to Albany so that we could get that additional, I think it was 1/4 or 0.5%. I've got the records here. I haven't been able to review them this evening. But we did that, and I voted for it. At the time, I thought it was a very wise thing to do. It's the middle of the aughts, if you recall. It was right before the real estate bubble burst. A lot of our sales tax and other revenues were tanking. A lot of our expenses were going up at the time. So at that point, with the promise of having a debt service reserve fund coupled with this piece of legislation, I was able to vote for it. And I believe at that point that was a good decision. And even obviously 1/4% more than the 3% would be good for this year going forward. But since that time, we've ramped up over the last 20 years, and from that 1/4%, now we're at a full percent. And each of those times, I voted against the additional extension, and that's what we're asking for tonight, a 3-year extension. They typically give us 2, but we always ask for 3, and we get 2. We settle for what we can get. But I think this is going to be good, and I'm sure this will be on the audit agenda in February as well.
Yep.
But I think this is good for us to have a discussion, because unlike 2005, when we were in dire straits financially and budgetarily, here in 2025, we're carefully managing a very large surplus in our budget surplus. We have between assigned and unassigned budget surplus, we have over $134 million. Now, a lot of that assigned portion of it, our Commissioner of Finance, to his credit, has put away for good purposes, for capital projects. That prevents us from borrowing. I think that's good. We put it away for perhaps contract settlements. So I'm not criticizing any of our current assigned fund balance that we have now. I think we can maybe move that around a little bit to perhaps maybe instead of asking for a full percent this go-round, because we are blessed with such a good, healthy fund balance, that perhaps we can return some of that fund balance back directly to the taxpayers through not asking Albany for a full percent extra sales tax, but rather 0.5%. And, obviously, we're not going to decide anything tonight on this, and I hope we don't, and I know we're not. But I think it's a good place to start talking about it anyway. We do get a lot of requests from town governments and village governments. I used to sit on a village board in the Village Brewster 20-something years ago, and my colleagues at the time, I was a lone dissenter then, would say, you got to share sales tax with the villages, and you got to share sales tax with the towns. And what we're talking about, though, is not sharing the county government's money. What we're talking about is sharing the taxpayers' money. And I'd rather see us in a very, which I think is a sound public policy, to try and return some of that money anyway, directly back to the taxpayers through direct sales tax relief. And Mike and I are going to be, we have talked about it, the county executive and I are going to talk about it, as I'm sure you all are going to be talking to our colleagues in the county executive about it. But I think it's not outlandish to say, in a time like this where we are blessed with such a large fund balance, let's instead of moving some of the money to just another level of government so they can figure out how to spend it, let's go ahead and devote it back to the taxpayers. We are asking here for a 3-year, and the law department was kind enough to draft up a standard resolution for us that is asking for a 3-year extension of this additional sales tax percentage, and that's what we typically ask for. We typically ask for a 3-year extension. We typically, unfortunately, only get a 2-year extension. So, again, this is a 3-step process. This resolution would be the first one. Then we have to adopt a second resolution once one of our legislators decides to sponsor it, and then there'll be a third resolution once there's a bill number up in Albany. And then, of course, they have to vote on it. So, it's the number that a 0.5% would equal would be about $11 million. And I know that's not nothing. I know that's a lot of money. And looking at $134 million in our assigned and unassigned fund balance, that's not sizable. That's not insignificant. But even if we were to go ahead and double that, say we get a 2-year bill, $22 million out of $134 million, at the end of that day, we would still have a budget to fund balance ratio higher than we've ever had, except for now. So those are just some of my thoughts. Obviously, I was in the minority all those times, and I know there were other legislators here who subsequent to me, went ahead and voted against the extensions, and I did that, and I can't vote for one. I can't vote for 1%, but I'd like us to at least not nibble away at it, but perhaps go down below 1%. And those are just some of my thoughts, and I turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Can I ask our Commissioner of Finance to maybe weigh in on the issue? What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
I know you have a lot, but we'll turn it, and then we'll let the legislature comment.
just-
We have the information.
Assuming you got 3 years and we forfeited 1%, that's $22 million. That would be $66 million over a 3-year span, or $44 million if we got, the 2-year extension. The other way to look at it is, by not supporting this 1%, you could go into jeopardy with our bond, rating. It could go down if, we're at a AA1 right now, so that could affect it. You have, we have contracts that are settling or have settled. We still have debt service cost. $22 million, which is almost half of our tax warrant, if you look at it that way. I don't know if you bounce back from, getting rid of $22 million, for 1 year. Like I said, we talked about it. What I've tried to do over the last couple of years is, take this surplus and put it into assigned, pots of money, one of them being the capital reserve, which over the last 2 or 3 years, as you've seen, we've invested almost $13-14 million, in our capital, infrastructure, which has kept the bond, we haven't had to go out for bond, and that's probably saved at least another $4 or $5 million over a lifespan of 20 years. These are just things to consider. We have mandated costs like health insurance, retirement cost. There's a committee right now that the county executive's office is working on with potentially enhancing the benefits, to the employees, because we're having problems with, retention and all that stuff. there's a plethora of stuff, you know. I mean, we're going into, you know, obviously with a new presidential administration, you know, who knows what's going to happen with, you know, I mean, if inflation goes down, which is a good thing, the flip side of that is you're not going to, you know, we're not going to get the sales tax like we have over the last, you know, few years.
Legislator Crowley.
I had similar concerns I know Legislator Elner has been championing for a while for employee health insurance, reduction, and that would be a big thing that we'd have to cut back on, looking into less borrowing, more property tax is something that could happen.
Good.
You know, there's salary adjustments, pay freeze or hiring freezes, all different things. I want to see the taxes go down for everybody, but these are certainly real things that I think we need to take into consideration before we make that judgment call. And, you know, we've seen over the past couple of years with people really struggling, and our county has been bountiful, and we're thankful for that, and thankful for your fiscal responsibility on that end. But, you know, I think we also, too, have talked about other things to keep it healthy, and I think it needs and deserves some discussion. I'm glad we're having it tonight.
And if I also make to the chair, you know, there's also in the county executive's presentation in the state budget, you know, there's those other mandated costs, like we lost, you know, FMAP. So, you know, we're not getting that subsidy anymore, so we're on the hook for almost $10 million, which is about a $2.5 million increase, you know, per year over the last few years. So you have those, you know, have that to consider. You're in the other items that you're going to see later on, you know, pre-K costs are going up. So, you know, these are things that, you know, just to weigh in and, you know, factor in. We've kept the property tax. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think in 22 and 23, it was at 46,800,000 or so. It actually went down to 46,312,000, if I'm not mistaken, and it's stayed like that for the last 2 years. So, if anything, it's gone down. So,
Legislator Birmingham.
yeah.
I've already spoken. Great.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
In concept, I'm absolutely for this, except I think we have to be even more aggressive, because I think that people, right now, things are so expensive, and if we could reduce the overall burden, and I'm just thinking anyone who's buying a car, so if you're having a major capital expenditure, then you're reducing, yes, the county's getting less sales tax, but we're putting it in the people. The whole problem with this type of legislation, if you will, is once you get it, you rely on it. I've been saying since before I was even elected, we need to wean it down. And I completely agree with Legislator Birmingham, but I would actually like to go and eliminate the whole 1%. I think that it will force judicious management. People are gonna have to really respect their budgets and do what's necessary. Mike, to your credit, you were able to generate, I think it was $7 million by changing the investment policy and putting in those instruments.
Mhm.
Is it gonna be challenging? Yes, but what are we supposed to do, okay? I wanna give tax relief to everyone. The other part of it is, which no one factors in, is if you have more money in your pocket, now you have more money to spend. So it can mitigate the overall impact to the county, because spending may go up. Now, this is my viewpoint at this time. Obviously, there's going to be additional information that needs to be processed, but I'm all in favor of the concept.
Legislator Birmingham.
Did you want, I saw your hand. I
No,
don't want to
I'm
jump in front of
curious
anybody.
as to what's changed for Legislator Elner in 2 years.
Nothing's changed. I campaigned on this.
You voted for it in '23.
Well, in '23, I did vote for it, but now I've seen the trends. The
Yeah.
trends have been up. We've been able to generate more income because of the investment instruments that the Department Commissioner of Finance has had, and now we have a healthy balance. So if this is a couple of year, let's call it an experiment that gives back to the people, I think it's a good idea. So that's
So-
what's changed in my thinking.
Legislator.
I mean, who wants to pay more
I've
taxes?
certainly thought about, ways to make up. and as Legislator Elner was quoted in '23, when he voted for increasing sales tax, was to investigate, as chair of the Economic Development Committee you were back then, and you had promised to investigate different, quoted, investigate a different revenue stream. So are there different revenue streams that we can come up with that you, at 2 years of investigating that, what have you come up with?
I'm no longer the head of economic development, I moved over to physical services.
Well-
So I've been trying to control costs over there, and I think the DPW has been doing an excellent job, and we've been working together, being efficient. Now, additional revenue streams, honestly, Nancy, I have not devoted a lot of time to it, but I think now that this is brought up, I really should think about it and see what we could do.
I voted against the increase every time it came before us. Just one quick note I have is the resolution itself and how it's worded is so misleading to the public, and I would like it to be revised. It's, the first paragraph says, whereas in light of the current and ongoing fiscal challenges facing Putnam County government, we're sitting on a fund balance of over, what is it, 174 million, a surplus of
No.
134, what?
No, you had,
Or
no,
our
the
fu-
legislative,
Yeah.
Fund balance is what?
Well,
you have undesignated, which is the free and clear money, if you want to say, of 78 million as of the audited financials. And then the difference is
Yeah.
the assigned, that.
if I could, to responsive, to legislator,
Just a number, because I.
yes, okay. Our unassigned fund balance is 78,332,000. The total assigned fund balance is 56,167. Those together equal $134 million. The reason I'm combining assigned and unassigned is it's GASB 54. It's a Government Accounting Standard Board rule that came in when, Mike, how long ago? 10 years ago, maybe?
At least, yeah.
Yeah. We used to have something called reserved fund balance and unreserved fund balance. Now we have this assigned and unassigned. The assigned fund balance that, again, Commissioner, my hat's off to you, you've done a great job at husbanding this money. That can always be changed by us. We did adopt a resolution in 2015 delegating to the Commissioner of Finance, Bill Carlin at the time, of course, the ability to assign fund balance. That is a legislative function that we have, that we delegated, and is being managed quite appropriately and professionally by Mike. But there are things in the assigned fund balance that we just haven't tapped into in the last few years. And again, we're putting them away for a rainy day. I'm going to wrap up. 134. I'm sorry, I keep going. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're right.
The actual resolution
Yeah.
itself is very.
I'm sorry.
clear to the public. The public should know that we are sitting on that fund balance and that surplus. And I know you pointed it out, but I mean, I think this resolution was written at a time where we didn't see any overages in our sales tax revenue. 2014, zero, over budget, through basically 2019, when the Wayfair was signed into law in June of 2019. And then we saw over budget of sales tax revenue from 16 million, 17 million, 13 million, and 7 million. So we're over budget every year. Our sales tax revenue just keeps going up. I know that can change with inflation, and it will, but as sales tax grows, property taxes decline, and you know my position on the 1% in sales tax. We generate sales tax in my district. We actually do. We generate quite a bit, and we don't see any services, and because of the behavior of the chairwoman, really lack of representation too. So that's pretty unfair. But when you look at what we generate, we have a lot of restaurants and other eating places. This is information provided to us by NYSAC. We don't generate, but restaurants in general in Putnam County generate over, and that's what we're known for in my district, over 138 million. Certain, grocery stores and clothing stores, beer, wine, and liquor stores, over 25 million. So we're contributing quite a lot. Your county funding that supports tourism pushes tourism on my district and offers no relief whatsoever, despite requests from our mayor, our supervisors, and, honest to goodness pleas for help. And in the actual, it's a health crisis at this point. So our municipalities fund our fire departments, our police departments, our ambulance corps, our tourism. We have to clean up the garbage that you generate income on. So, we're just faced with dealing with that constantly. And, Putnam County, out of the 62 counties in New York State, we're like one of a handful that does not share sales tax revenue with municipalities. If you look at Rockland County, they retain 3.75%, but the additional 1.25% is distributed, 100% of that, to the towns and villages with the police departments based on the number of police officers. Actually, in Westchester County, they retain the first 1.5% of their sales tax revenue. These are all the counties that border Putnam. So they retain 1.5% of their sales tax. But the additional 1%, they distribute 50% of that to towns, villages, and the cities based on population, and 16% of that they distribute to school districts. An additional 1% the county retains, but the 70% of that additional 1% distributes 20% of it to towns. And also, like Westchester and Rockland, Dutchess County retains 82.74% and distributes 5.41% to their cities, 9.5%.
They're mandated.
9.5, they're mandated by the state,
When, my understanding is
because
when,
it's a city.
correct.
So,
And we don't have any cities here, so,
well, to my point, and I still have the floor, 9.5% is distributed to the towns and villages. And I think we have a lot of towns and villages in Putnam County. So, again, we keep collecting sales tax, it keeps going up, our revenue and sales tax keeps going up. And we don't share with the taxpayer, we don't share with the municipality, who basically, hold the burden of all of the resources that we offer in this county, in fire departments, ambulance corps, police departments. So I'm not gonna be in favor of extending that at all, and I'm just curious as to what we're gonna do with this. Like how we're gonna make up the revenue, like there were promises, or, why the sudden change.
Commissioner?
I just want, if I may, going back to the sales tax with the surplus of $12.3 million, I know you guys don't have this in front of you, but when we presented the '24 budget, in order to balance this budget, we used shy of $3.7 million of general fund appropriated fund balance. We used $1.5 million of the retirement reserve because pension costs were going up, and we used $5.2 million of future capital projects. So, I mean, when you do the math, it's almost like we took that surplus and reinvested it into the '24 budget.
But at the end of the day, we still had $134 million between assigned and
Yeah,
unassigned.
it's a good problem, but,
Legislator
yes,
Adjournment.
understood.
Thank you. Speaking about sales tax revenue, and every year I've asked, we have Brewster, Carmel, Mayapack that have car dealerships. And that, I would think, would bring in the most sales tax revenue in a particular town. Now, there's no way, and I was told, for you to let us know exactly the exact number on the,
Automobile
Sales.
dealers
I-
bring in $289,277,586.
in the towns in Putnam County?
It's not specific to towns.
Well, that's,
I-
that is a high amount.
There's a report that only I could
Right,
see, but I could,
okay.
but I
Legislator
could.
Birmingham.
Yeah, on that point, though, Mike, doesn't like, for instance, I just bought a certified pre-owned, I never buy used. I just bought a certified pre-owned Jeep again from Westchester County. And one of the reasons I shopped out of Putnam is because I knew, it correctly, or not, I hope, that sales tax follows me back to Putnam County. Does it not?
believe so.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So,
Where you register.
where you register. So those numbers is accurate because that's Putnam specific. So the good thing is that we're still going to be getting those revenues. Although, but I'll tell you, 0.5% on that, I would have saved, I think it was $35,000, I would have saved a few $100. And that's significant for a major purchase and might pay for one tank of gas. You never know. But to echo a little bit of what Legislator Montgomery was talking about, you know, over the last 5 fiscal years, we've collected just about $400 million in sales tax for Putnam County. Of that $400 million, roughly $53 million of those $400 million were monies that we hadn't budgeted. In other words, surplus. So, you know, and again, we did have that one year where we almost nicked it by $13. We were right on the money. But our most recent history for the last 5 years, has fiscal years up to 23, last audited years, we really, not we, the taxpayers of Putnam County really knocked it out of the park. And that's the impetus, anyway, behind some of my thoughts here. And one last point, then I'll shut up. We have a great program, and the county executive and I talked about this on the phone this morning. Around the holiday time, we do have a sales tax exemption for clothing under $110, I think it is. What I'm proposing is not to replace that, but to supplement that, because I think both programs can be sustained under even this, what I view as a modest, compared to Legislator Elner's view, is a modest 0.5%. And my question is, and it's not a gotcha question, it really isn't, Mike, but when we talked about the $110 sales tax, forgiveness, that generated about $3.7 million. And again, I just rejoined in January. But was there any hand-wringing? It's a lot smaller number, I know. And I get that. I'm talking about $10 or $11 million a year, and $3 million is 1/3 of that, roughly. But I don't recall any hand-wringing about, my gosh, that's going to cost us some money. I mean, we can, and I know it's probably a matter of degree, but I just think if
I'm working with the state to get those
Yeah.
figures.
Okay.
So.
yeah, I know in past years it was
Report.
about $3 million.
Yeah.
And but that's to keep in mind too. I don't want this program. My suggestion to replace that. I think we can do both because around the holidays and the other times that is a real savings for Putnam's taxpayers. So thank you, Madam Chair. I'm done.
Legislator Montgomery, did you have another? Okay. Legislator Elner.
The two single greatest generators of sales tax are most likely automobile sales and gasoline.
Correct.
And people are still gonna buy gasoline. And Legislator Montgomery and I agree on this. We're coming to it from very different areas and very different views. But one question, if someone could help me, is one of the things that we do in Putnam County is that if a town, a village, and a school district doesn't get paid, Putnam County makes them whole. So in essence, there's zero receivables. If the school district gets shortchanged by $3.6 million, do all those other counties do that?
Well, I know in Westchester, I think it's the opposite.
So the
Yeah.
towns have to go and get it. So one of the way the system was arranged before any of us got here in Putnam was that the county was going to keep the sales tax, and the benefit of that is, guess what? School district, you get 100% receivables. Village, you get this.
Right.
And I know that's in the millions of dollars for every one of the
And
school
ongoing.
district that the county gives out. So it's an indirect, but it is something which also needs to be factored into all this.
And through the chair, if I could also say that, we've also taken that surplus and we have put it in investment tools, because as the feds lower the rates, we've now projected, investments, through 2026, maybe even through 2027. We've locked in those rates. So I do caution that, we do have, I don't know off the top of my head, but we have a lot of money, tied up, in money market CDs. What there could be, if we had to break them, that would cost, the taxpayers money with penalties and stuff of that nature.
You could guide us through that, though, I would imagine.
Yeah.
To make sure we don't do that.
Yeah.
Legislator Goldman.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I think it's a good idea to lower the amount of money that the residents have to pay. Generally in New York State, we are overtaxed. Whether it's a fee, a levy, a toll, an assessment, a contribution, or a congestion price, which New York City has just put in. We're paying too much to live here in New York. I would prefer lowering the property taxes over lowering the sales tax. The area I represent, Putnam Valley, no one discusses with me that the sales tax is too high. The discussion is property taxes are too high, property taxes are too high. The reality is, in Putnam Valley, the place I represent, people don't shop in Putnam. I'm sorry to say that, but they don't shop in Putnam. They shop in Yorktown, they shop in Somers, and they shop in Portland. Why? Because it's right next door. So lowering the sales taxes really won't do anything for the residents in Putnam Valley. Lowering the property taxes is really what should be done. So if this body decides to do something like this, $11 million will go a long way to lower property taxes.
Legislator Yonke.
$11 million would knock off roughly 25% of the county tax bill, which, by the way, the average taxpayer, when they complain about their taxes, they don't feel the county tax. It's the school tax.
Yeah.
We have no impact on that. We talk about where the sales tax is generated. In my district, I've got three car dealerships off the top of my head. Two of them are probably the two most busy car dealerships, Brewster Honda, Brewster Subaru, in the county, okay? I've got the Highland Shopping Center, which has the only Kohl's, it's got a Home Depot. But never once did I say, I should get more money because of all the sales tax that my district generates. We're all in this together. I do believe, and I'm the one that proposed 2 years ago, that we knocked that $500,000 off the tax levy. That was more, I mean, it's significant, but now it's been 2 years that we've given tax relief to the property taxpayers of this county. I think now it's time that for those people who don't pay property tax, they get relief. When they go buy a car, when they go to a restaurant, when they go online to shop, that they get immediate relief every time they shop. And I'd be in favor of actually just a little bit, I'm thinking 0.3% off, and we have the money to cover it. You know, we're talking about financial difficulties and respectfully, Mike, you know, we have the money. The money's already unallocated. We have the money just sitting there, okay? And if when the CDs are due, we have to tap into those, which I don't think we'll have to. I think we're still gonna be over, even if we knock it down 0.3%. Thank you.
That just, when we're looking at the sales tax report that we just looked at when we first got here, you can see the trend. It was during the Wayfair decision. So I think a lot of it is online sales. I mean, dare I say Amazon. So I see them up and down my street every single day. We have a lot of Amazon sales tax. Just wanted to point that out. And also, I just want to ask you a question. Who wrote the resolution that's attached? Was this the county executive's office? I mean, it's from...
and I'll defer to Conrad, but I believe, as is normal, anytime there's an administrative request for legislation, which this is, I believe the law department would have been the one to write it, but I don't want to speak for him.
So any further
Which
discussion,
is-
we can tweak any of the whereases if we so choose.
Any changes, let me know and I'll make sure it gets done.
Okay. And also, I mean, for me, I agree with my colleague. I think any time we can save the taxpayer money, I think we should, instead of creating buckets of money out there for other municipalities to draw from. But just as a point of reference, Dutchess County, I mean, I don't know if I would be in favor of deleting the entire 1%. I think I'd be a little more conservative than that. Possibly a 0.25%. see how that goes for the next 2, possibly 3 years. For example, Dutchess County and Orange County both have 8 1/8%, and that would be in line with a couple of the surrounding counties. Westchester's pretty high, like we are right now, and they also have town taxes, town sales tax. But that's just my point of reference and a couple of comments for me. And Legislator Montgomery, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I hope that the resolution can be revised to reflect who we are as a county, because it's very misleading. I think I would like to do what other counties have done and direct this 1% somehow to our police departments, fire departments, and ambulance corps, because, let's face it, they're suffering. I mean, I don't understand, I don't know how much our Bureau of Emergency Service budget is, but it's like, it's the municipalities and the actual fire departments and ambulance corps that are doing the actual work of emergency services. But I have to, well, you keep going back and forth and speculating on where the sales tax revenue is coming from. And yes, the number one is automobile dealers, over 239 million. I would imagine a lot of that is going to come from Carvana. I don't quite understand Legislator Admisio and Legislator Yonke's point in targeting me about the lack of services in my county, and me pointing out that, yeah, we don't get any resources. Let's face it, this is the county seat. Your districts sit where all of the resources are. There are virtually none over in my district. I just think it's ironic, thinking about the mob mentality of this legislature, because I voted against this 3 times, and the statements from the legislators who spoke tonight were reflecting on what the then Commissioner Carlin stated, that this is the most important piece of legislation for the fiscal health of the county. He stated that that 1% that I am so in favor of not approving the extension represents 20 million. He stated that, put in that perspective, the entire property tax levy is 46 million. The county could not come back from a 20 million loss. Legislator Sage stated collecting the revenue through sales tax, quote, is more fairer than putting the burden on the backs of the property owners in Putnam. Legislator Yonke at that time, for the 3 times that we voted on this, stated that it's not possible to cut 20 million from the budget, so the only other way to gain that 20 million back would be through increasing property tax. He stated it is important that this request goes through. Legislator Admisio stated, quoted, very important. Legislator Sage stated that it's astronomical. This would be astronomical for senior citizens, and you were in full favor of increasing the property tax. And as I said, Legislator Elner, as chair of the Economic Development Committee, was entrusted to investigate additional revenue streams. So, you know, for the 3 times that I adamantly voted against this and gave my pitch for all the reasons that you guys are talking about tonight, and your mob mentality can now get together because one of you is putting this forward.
This is on for discussion.
That's very interesting.
We're discussing, we're having a really good
Can I-
discussion.
no,
You're
no.
in favor of it. It's great,
Legislator-
I love it.
Can I-
Do it, vote on it now.
Okay, Legislator Birmingham.
I would like to sympathize with Legislator Montgomery. I, for many years, was that lone voice as well. There were a lot of 8-1 votes on this issue in particular, and I won't go into too much detail, but in the first year or so, there was a lot of strong-arming that I experienced, and I'll just leave it at that. But yes, I can completely sympathize with your. I'm sorry, I'll wait. Nope. Okay, I'm sorry. But I can sympathize and agree with you that can be a lonely place. But I think now we're in a very different place than we were in 2005 when I first voted for that 0.25%. We were facing, and all of us faced in I'm sure, our own personal budgets, a very dire financial situation. And perhaps, again, not being on this board for the last 12 years, I really can't speak to the experience all of you have with respect to these votes coming up in the past, but I think we can all agree, and perhaps maybe, if not all of us, some of us who weren't part of the mob 3 years ago can join the mob this year, and maybe, as a good public policy measure, in a bipartisan spirit maybe, come to a place where maybe we're all not going to get a 0.5%, maybe it'll be 0.25%, maybe we're all not going to get 1%, or maybe there might be 5 votes for the full percent. But I agree, it's good that we're talking about this, and I think we're in a different place than we were even 2 years ago with respect to our sales tax. So I hear what you're saying about being the number one, the only one in that instance. So, and I'm not trying to minimize. You've been 1-8 a lot more times than I have. I know, but I'm trying to end on a high note, and I want to try and
Legislator Elner, go ahead.
trying to elevate.
Just to clarify for everybody at home, the way we get the sales tax on vehicles is when they are registered. So regardless of where the car is purchased, it comes through the county clerk's office. And actually, you've got to give credit to our county clerk, because he has been, I'm going to use the term lobbying with Albany. It used to be when you would register your car or re-register, register your car, Albany would get all of that if it was done online. Now we are getting a portion. So I can't take responsibility, Legislator Montgomery, but it's a trifle additional revenue stream. So whether it's Carvana or our local dealership, as long as you register the car in Putnam County gets the sales tax.
Legislator Goldman.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Commissioner, the sales tax exemption for clothing and shoes under $100.
110, I just wanted,
What was that?
110. Just wanted-
Sorry, thank you. Which goes until March of 2026. How much have we forfeited?
I'm working on that number. I'll be able to report to you guys in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Because they're actually still filing as of December 20th, so they're doing their reconciliations, better figures by next
It'd
month.
be interesting to
Yep.
learn how much we could have gained or how much we gave back to the taxpayer.
If I could, another way to look at that, instead of using the word forfeit, perhaps a more rosier word might be how much have the taxpayers benefited directly from that?
The reason I used that word is
Okay.
because that word was used before. I originally was going to say, how much did it cost the county? And someone, I don't remember who said forfeited, so I.
Yeah, I hear you,
I
Bill.
used that word.
Legislator Addonizio.
Thank you. Yeah, just to your question, is that we won't really know, because maybe people purchased more items also because it was less money that you don't save. So, in other words, they were saving money, so now they could purchase more items. So I don't know how you would actually,
Quantify it.
Yeah.
it would have to be maybe the year before, during the school time, or I don't know how you.
Well,
how you do it.
Probably a little cyclical, too.
I also just wanted to mention that, just so everyone understands, this would have to be New York State.
Correct.
So, we might put this in and it might not even be approved.
Right.
Just want to mention that.
Yep. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we are also one of the few counties that provides, talk about services
ALS.
through our ALS.
Yep.
Right, for all the towns and villages in Putnam County. So that's something that other
And
counties don't
also
do.
mandated cost with the community colleges,
Right,
so,
yeah. And this, I think it's been a really good discussion tonight. I enjoy the lively back and forth. I think it's well worth it. And we will certainly revisit this to pass something or not pass something at a future. I'm sorry, Legislator Crowley, did you have another?
When will you have those numbers, do you think, for the sales tax?
I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks.
Oh, so we'll know when we revisit this,
Yes.
like, exactly what we're kind of looking at and
Yep,
be
I have a
able to have-
contact at the state
Perfect.
that's
I
providing.
think it's great to have those numbers, have this discussion. I think it's very healthy, and to, give back to the taxpayers, realize, what we can and can't do, and work together as a team. I think it's good.
Yep, totally agreed. Okay, is there any comment from the public? I know we've done a lot of legislative discussion. I don't know if anyone from the public would like to weigh in on this. Okay, I will move on now to agenda item number 13. 14, which is an FYI. It's our guardrail and property damage table. I would encourage everyone to review it. And on to agenda item number 14. We do have some other business in front of us tonight. I'd like to make a motion to accept other business. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So our other business is approval for a fund transfer for the Health Department preschool at private institution bills. This is in the amount of, this is one of those mandated costs. This is in the amount of $170,000.
So this is just to
Wanna
get
embellish
them
on this
through,
one?
this is just estimating the incremental difference for the fourth quarter, pretty much. But as you can see, it's $170,000. So, because when they did their '24 budget, it was 91, and now they have 106. And it could always go
And don't they
up.
change the fees halfway through the year, too? They had to increase
Yeah, they get
fees,
increases as
and
well.
It's hard to budget when they change fees
Correct.
halfway through the year.
Yeah, NYSAC is the one that sets the rates, so
Right.
be mindful of that as well.
This is mandated by the state. We have to pay our bills. This is in the amount of $170,000. If there's any further comments or questions regarding this particular item, I will make a motion to approve agenda item 14A for the approval of the fund transfer for the preschool at private institution bills in the amount of $170,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.